Hello everybody, this is Altarox. This is another alternate history scenario in which the Second Silesian Uprising expanded into conflict. So the Second Silesian Uprising, there's an area known as Silesia. It's in Central Europe, like on the border between Poland and Germany, and a part of it, Upper Silesia, was in after the end of World War I, about 50% Polish, 50% German. So, yeah, there was a lot of uprising and conflict there after the war. And the second of these uprisings was because the newspapers reported falsely that the Soviets had taken Warsaw, although we know that Warsaw was successfully defended and the miracle of the Vistula. This led to many Germans in Upper Silesia sacking Polish-owned shops and houses and such, and holding parades and such. The Poles retaliated, and this sparked the Second Silesian Uprising. In the point of divergence isn't a definite point, but basically the Silesian Poles at this time, more of them are actually fighting, and they fight harder, and also not as much support from the former Entente reaches Germany. The PMOUS, which I'll be referring to as PMOUS, I don't know why, just sounds good, I guess. That was the Polish military organization of Upper Silesia. They help arm and train some of the Silesian Poles. The PMOUS fights the German gendarmes, which are police with military training, and Free Corps. The PMOUS are slowly pushed back, but put up great resistance. In October, they start receiving aid from the experienced Polish army, who had just signed a ceasefire with the Soviets. By December, PMOUS forces lose their last town and resort to fighting in a guerrilla campaign. And at this point, Poland, who had been pressuring Germany about the situation since it started and since November, and also France, who had remained neutral, but their government sided with the Poles, began secretly began new diplomatic and propaganda campaigns against Germany about Upper Silesia, and Germany remains adamantly against this. In February, Poland and the Soviets officially signed a peace treaty. This is earlier than our timeline because the Poland wanted to militarize the German border because they saw a war coming. They agreed to terms similar to the Treaty of Riga, which basically just defined the borders of Poland at the time. But with an added non-aggression pact for 10 years. Poland makes a demand to Germany to cede Upper Silesia. Germany declines. The French and the British, seeing this, make an agreement not to get involved. Germany builds up their army using loopholes in the Treaty of Versailles, I can't think of many, but categorizing forces as police forces and such, and just not giving them as heavy firepower. On March 1st, they start to do this, even though that would continue through. Spoiler alert, there's gonna be a war. On March 1st, they issue a ultimatum to Germany to give Upper Silesia and pay reparations to the Poles who had their shops and homes destroyed in Upper Silesia. On March 4th, Germany declines and war is declared. Poland swiftly attacks and takes Upper Silesia, because at this time Poland had a much bigger army. It was 800,000-ish, and I'll talk about that in a bit. They attack and take Upper Silesia and attacks Ostpreußen, which is East Prussia, They take Königsberg on the 13th of March. The border dissolves into trench warfare. On April 10th, there's a breakthrough in the north, and Poland pushes deeply into Pomerania. And yeah, as I said, Versailles stopped the Germans from building as great an army as they could. So they have less men, although they're better leadership. Because of most of their troops are veterans, but they're disorganized because a lot of their forces wouldn't actually be in direct working for the government. They would be very autonomous, which the Free Corps, which would make up most of their forces. The Polish would have over 900,000 men because they'd have the over 800,000 from the Soviets, and they'd mobilize more, probably. Although they would start to get pretty war-weary. And 25,000 Poles that were living in the new Germany who would volunteer and form volunteer battalions and such against the 100,000 actual German army, which I will be referring to as the Wehrmacht, although I believe they had a different name. I learned recently, the Weimar forces, but I'm just going to call them the Wehrmacht because that was World War II German military. 150,000 gendarmes, and 275,000 Free Corps. These numbers, I'm not so sure about. It's just estimations, and they're probably wrong and not indicative of what would actually happen, but sorry. As I said, there would be a lot of conflict between the German High Command and the Free Corps. The German army would have better leadership due to World War I generals. The League of Nations would demand, a withdrawal, a white peace, but no one really cares because I know it might be breaking news to some, but the League of Nations doesn't have that much sway on a lot of things at this time. That was sarcastic. A lot of people know that. They teach that in schools, in middle school. And they, yeah. But yeah, I'm rambling. On the 21st, the Germans would counterattack in the south, but couldn't fully retake, Silesia. On May the 3rd, Poland pushes more into Pomerania and retakes the land that the counterattack had taken back, and they would also take Breslau and Stettin. Stettin's in Pomerania, and Breslau is, I believe, it's called Wroclaw now, but it's in Silesia. On the 8th, the last German troops east of the Oder, which is a river, would be pushed back to the western bank, and on the 30th, the Poles would start the Cottbus offensive to get to the city of Cottbus. On June 11th, it would succeed. On June 13th and 15th, Frankfurt an der Oder, which isn't the other Frankfurt, and Kustrin would be taken. And on the 18th, the Poles would reach, on their the southern part of the line, would reach the River Spree, and the Battle of Berlin would start. On the 25th, Stralsund would be taken by the Poles, and the front would start to stagnate. Except for they'd stagnate for a while, and then on July 27th, Polish troops would have to leave the Berlin, west of the Spree, giving Germany a Pyrrhic victory in that battle. On August 1st, France, finally they would just, ignore Britain trying to hold them back, issues a demand to Germany to make peace or face intervention, and this would also be going against the treaty they made with the pact they made with Britain not to get involved, but they'd be breaking that pact. On August 5th, Germany accepts and an armistice would be signed. On September 22nd, the Treaty of Prague is signed. Germany would be forced to pay war reparations. Poland would annex Ostpreußen, Upper Silesia, and all German land east of the River Oder. On October 9th, the Poles would declare September 22nd, which was the treaty day, and August 25th, which was the day of the Miracle and the Vistula, national holidays. On November 3rd, the Weimar government would arrest many Freikorps leaders, and on the 5th, the Freikorps many conservatives and remaining monarchists and newly, somewhat popular, still in 4 to 5%, Nazi party, because that had actually formed at the time. But it would be bigger than our timeline, definitely, because of war weariness, and people are would be upset with how this new treaty on top of of Versailles would hurt Germany. So they would launch a coup and occupy many cities in the north and east, such as Berlin. The Weimar government would survive in actually the city of Weimar, starting the German Civil War. And on the 9th, many communist splinter cell states form in southern Germany, the Ruhr Valley, and Rhineland. This would be a very messy war. The Emperor Tiger Star, he makes videos of war animations. It would be something that I can just only imagine making one of those animations on. It scares me. It would be incredibly messy of a war. And on December 1st, the German communist states would sort of unite to form the United German Workers' Republics. It would be a confederation of similar to Soviets, workers' councils, but they would be bigger workers' republics, led by a premier elected by the councils of the workers' republics. On the 25th, the Weimar government would fall and surrender. The president and chancellor would be executed as traitors to Germany and would be blamed for losing to the Poles and such and deposing the Kaiser. On January 5th through the 11th, France would occupy Baden and Rhineland from the UGWR. And on the 1st of February, France would issue an ultimatum to the opposing sides that they would intervene even further and fight both sides if peace isn't made. On the 3rd, the UGWR would agree, and the coupists would agree on the deadline of the ultimatum, February 28th. The Treaty of Paris would state, I know, this is another Treaty of Paris, that the Republic of Baden, Saarland, and the Rhenish Republic would be formed under French influence and protection. The German state, which is North Germany, and the UGWR would be recognized by most nations and would be forced to recognize each other, and their borders would we need to be describing, so basically UGWR in the south, German state in the north. The UGWR would take the remainder of Hessen, not in the Rhineland. They'd take Thuringia and Saxony west of the Elbe and some of southern Prussia. So that, of the Weimar states were also very messy. It's Germany. Lots of things were very messy. So yeah, on the 6th, on the 6th of March, Mackensen, who would be the Chancellor of Germany, would hold elections in the 200-seat Reichstag that would be established and would invite the Kaiser back. So on October 20th, Kaiser Wilhelm would be re-coronated as Kaiser. And also, I forgot to mention, all the maps in this and on my channel I make myself. Because I don't want to infringe on copyright, and also because I'm crafting my own scenarios, so I have to make them myself. But the images are not mine. I don't have direct possession over pictures taken in the 1920s. Then on December 5th, Miklos Horthy, who's like the dictator of Hungary, he was originally an admiral, actually, which is funny because a landlocked nation would have an admiral as a leader. He would be assassinated by closet communists, which like people who, the idea of like someone who's hiding their communism, I guess, I believe. I don't know if I made up that term, but I think McCarthy might have used it. Yeah, I just was saying, that's just a term, I guess. So yeah, they would, from the old Hungarian Soviet Republic, which basically for like a month or two, Hungary was communist in 1919. They would assassinate Miklos Horthy and his son. I forget his name, but yeah, he would seize power, and the communists and like people wanting democracy and some old monarchists would rise up, sparking a civil war, which I'm not going to go into detail, but it would last a while. On December 7th, Austria, worrying of all the communists around them, would create an alliance with like the UGWR and the civil war with the communists to their east. They would create an alliance with Germany, like the German state, called the Berlin-Vienna Pact, but many people would call it the New Central Powers, like in the media and such. France would try to stop this, but Britain would stop France because they just want to not escalate the situation, opening the rift between Britain and France even further. On December 20th, the German Reichstag elections are held, and the results are here. So yeah, those are the results. On the 1st of January, 1922, fascist paramilitary troops, the Black Shirts, in Italy would hold a hostile takeover. Since of the butterfly effect, this would not be the March on Rome. It would be different, but I'm gonna say that there won't be a fascist takeover because of the popularity of like Mussolini, and they would still have resentment over Versailles. They would take control. This one would be more militant, though, and they would take control of the palace and force the king to abdicate, placing Mussolini as like leader of Italy, Dux. France would quickly send troops on the 12th to quell this legitimate coup. And Yugoslavia would aid them and like move into occupied Trieste and Istria, because Yugoslavia would not want some sort of revanchist, am I using that term correctly? Like expansionist Italy, because they would be targeted. France would take Sardinia like quickly, because the Italian army at this time, like, it would be in disarray due to the change in power, and they would push into Italy and probably not meet any like real resistance until they reached Genoa. By the 26th, the battle lines would reach the river Reno at its extent, and on the 1st of February, some socialists and Republicans in Venice, like not most of the people, like a small minority, but like 20%, like Republicans, I'm talking about people who democratically, they wanted democracy like a republic. Probably like 30% of the population would be in this group, 30% of the population of like northeastern Italy, Venetia, would declare the Republic of Venice. On the 11th, French Marines would land in Sicily in many places and start Operation Chien qui rit, which means laughing dog, and the map will go up now. So yeah, I'm proud of this map. On the 17th, all the Italian forces north of the river Arno would be defeated. And by Italian, I'm talking about fascist Italian, not Venetian. And there would be some like old Italians, like old meaning liking the old government. On the 30th, Victor Emmanuel III, who would have escaped house arrest after being forced to abdicate, probably like he would be smuggled out by like French special forces or something in some sort of commando mission. Like, it sounds dumb, but I'm just gonna say he's escaped house arrest. Is recoronated in Caligari as King of Italy. On the 11th of March, fascist Italy would relocate their capital to Naples because of the French coming. On the 24th, the Hungarian Civil War would end. I know I'm sort of pulling out of immersion, but and the People's Republic of Hungary would be formed. On the 28th, the last remnants of this so-called Venetian Republic would capitulate to the French. On April 1st, Rome would fall. And also, this time, Ireland become autonomous, similar to what happened with our timeline, but with similar borders with slight tweaks I made. Just because that was bound to happen. And they're not, the Republic of Ireland hasn't technically formed yet, but they basically, what happened in our timeline, they became basically their own thing, but still in the Commonwealth. Still, technically they would remain in the Commonwealth, but, more with some slight bit of control still in London. Very slight, but I don't know enough about it. On April 3rd, Mussolini would commit suicide and would be succeeded by Italo Balbo, who was more moderate, and he hated the anti-Semitic policies, and he wanted actually to join the, I read somewhere that he wanted to join the Allies. I'm not sure if it's valid or what. On April 13th, Naples would be taken and the Italian capital would be moved to Foggia. And on April 18th, Balbo would attempt to surrender, but while he would be going to surrender to the French, there would be a silent coup, and Emilio de Bono would be placed in power. He would throw Balbo, and he was an old World War I general. On April 28th, de Bono would be killed. And the Italians would be forced to surrender because de Bono would be the French would surround Foggia and probably bomb it and kill de Bono, and the Italian fascists would surrender. The Kingdom of Italy would be reinstituted, but with French supporting them, and they would ban fascism and would recreate the government. War at this point, France, who would be incredibly war exhausted, would enter a period of isolation, not just sort of remaining in their corner of Europe, only keeping protection to the minor powers they carved out of Germany. Hungary and South Germany would join the Comintern around this point too. On July 20th, the Kingdom of the Netherlands would join the new Central Powers because there'd be a monarchist presence near them in the Central Powers. On March 8th, 1923, communist insurgents in Czechoslovakia would take control of key government buildings in Prague and proclaim the United Czechoslovakian Workers' Republics, very similar to what happened with the UGWR. Hungary and the UGWR would immediately ally themselves with this rebellion and intervene. On April 15th, the Czechoslovakian Czechoslovakian government would be forced to surrender. The terms would be laid like this. Eastern and southern Slovakia would be taken by Hungary. By eastern Slovakia, like Carpathian Ruthenia. The UGWR would take the Sudetenland due to its German, like it was a German area ethnically, and the UCSWR would be formed with the Workers' Republics being Slovakia, Moravia, and Bohemia. On July 8th, Bulgaria would join the Central Powers, repeat with what they did do, and since they were surrounded by nations they weren't on the best of terms with, they would want a decently strong ally. On April 3rd, the Poles, and sort of in response to this, but since in this timeline Poland is much stronger, they would invite many Central and Eastern European nations to Krakow to form the Intermarium, which I will always refer to as Międzymors, which is the Polish name because when I learned about it, it was in Hearts of Iron 4, and that's what they called it. Romania, Latvia, Estonia, Finland, and Yugoslavia would accept and join this alliance. On the 5th of May, 1924, Vladimir Lenin would die. He would probably be poisoned. Like, rumors would float that he was poisoned, and the validity of those would be, well, no one knows. It would be possible that he would be probable. Yeah, he would be poisoned. But people would that would just be rumors at the time. By the 1st of June, Leon Trotsky would take power and would exile Stalin, who would leave for Hungary because Hungary would be more authoritarian communism. On November 8th, Calvin Coolidge would win the election to become President of the United States, since Harding wouldn't run again. In our timeline, Harding died, but I'm just going to say the magical butterfly effect pushes his life just over the election tipping point. So yeah, he would be inaugurated in March of the next year. On the 5th of April, 1925, I know it's a big jump, but not a lot's happening. Hungary would leave the Comintern due to ideological differences between their branch of communism and the Soviet branch, like the other nations' branches. They would be more totalitarian. Around the 30th of August, a small communist guerrilla group leader would sneak across the Soviet border and ask for aid. Like a small communist guerrilla group leader. A small, guerrilla group's leader would sneak across the Soviet border to ask for aid in bringing the revolution to Turkey. And on February 4th, a force of communist Turks trained and supported by the Red Army would cross the Turkish border. Although Ataturk was beloved, there would be communists, and Trotsky would want to spread communism to the world. So, as you can see on the map, that's just the scope of the war. I'm going to go into more detail now. So on the 6th, the city of Kars would be taken, and followed by Van on the 15th. By the 19th, the advance of the Red Army would be stopped outside of Erzurum, and you can see that on the map with the first little wave. On March 14th, Greek troops would march into European parts of Turkey, and the Greek Navy would land Marines in the Turkish islands in the Aegean. On March 20th, Istanbul would be sieged, and the Soviets would push to Trabzon. On March 28th, Erzurum would be taken, and the Turks would retreat to form their defenses on the Tigris and Farhat rivers. Although they would have the home field advantage, and their troops would be they would have a lot of troops, the Red Army would be just so vast. On April 27th, this line would be broken, and the Turks would retreat to the southern Euphrates River in the south, and in the north, the Soviets would maintain their steady advance. May 1st, Samsun would fall, On May 8th, Istanbul would fall. On May 17th, Turkey would officially make an agreement with Greece where they'd cede their Aegean possessions and their European parts to Greece. So Istanbul is now known as Constantinople. Again, on May 19th, the Turkish southern line would break, and on May 21st, Gaziantep and Malatia would fall. On June 4th, Kayseri would fall. By the way, I suggest you have a map of Turkey in front of you so you can see where these cities are. Sorry I'm not providing you when I made this map for the actual battle lines, so I'm gonna keep that one up. On June 6th, Zonguldak would fall. On June 7th, Adana would fall, and on the following day, Mersin would fall. On the 11th, Turkey would move their capital to Izmir in the west, and a week later, Ankara, which would be their capital, would fall. In our timeline, Ankara was made capital of Turkey in 23, so I'd assume a similar thing would happen, that would happen. This was just a lack of foresight on my part, but so yeah. On the 22nd, Konya would fall, followed by Antalya on the 26th, and on July 5th, Eskişehir would fall, and on the 10th, Bursa would fall. On July 21st, 1926, Turkey would surrender, and the People's Republic of Turkey would be formed. This would be a puppet state of the Soviets. Yeah, I'm gonna project the map for on this date. No. So yeah, this is the end of the scenario for now. I am most definitely making a part 2 to this in the future, because this is so minuscule in the amount of time covered. As you can see, I'm going pretty in depth. I like to think that I'm going more in depth than other alternate history channels. So yeah, I'm gonna let you look at the map for a second, and yeah, my next video will be, and I just realized I do not have where I keep my list of ideas to randomly choose, so I'll just guess it'll be a surprise then. Goodbye.